What's going on, everyone? Welcome in. Let's see. I had a message somewhere. Where'd it go? Oh, there it goes. What in the world? Interesting. What's going on, Ty? GLNG. I heard about some noise about that, actually. I heard someone talking about that. Makes you take a peep of it. I didn't even look at that ticker all day. Transportation. Sounds like a sick ticker. But yeah, that looks beautiful. You have a nice little inverted head and shoulders action right there. Beautiful little inverted head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder breakout, going for the retest, and you get a continuation to the upside. I like that chart. Really nice. I would definitely hold on to that one. We'll see what she does tomorrow. I think transportation, energy, and stuff, those kind of names will do really good tomorrow to close out the week pretty strong. But we'll see what that does. It's a nice little chart. Well, welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. We'll get started here in just about a minute or two here. See if anyone trickles in. Give it probably just a minute or so here. Hey, oh, that's hilarious. All right, guys. I got a few of you in here. What's going on, Gaston? Burn it all. Actually, I'm with you on that. I'm slightly bearish. I mean, we've had pretty good run here out of Nasdaq. I know that Gaston's been temporary bullish. Also, he's pretty much on track in terms of, I wouldn't say burn it all, but yes, we are slightly bearish. We had a nice V-shaped recovery here the day before yesterday. Beautiful 200-point run out of Nasdaq futures yesterday. And then today it really just gave us a nice little push to the upside right off of that data. Gaston, yeah, I do have quite a bit of puts. And I do have some lotto puts also. So yeah, I'm pretty much in puts. Put it that way. But just so you guys get an understanding, and you pretty much are wondering this morning, yeah, the data was bad, and why the market pretty much just mooned. So the reason why the market went in the fashion that it did is basically because of the fact that the data came in line with what the market expectations were. Despite the fact that the data was bad, it did come in line with what the market was expecting. Now, had we ended up with some kind of data that was drastically bad, that probably would have put more pressure on the feds, then it likely would have been not a scenario that we saw today. We would have saw something a little bit more calmer, maybe a flat day per se. But being the fact that they ended up coming in line with what market was expecting, that's why we saw that entire rally today, because the market was already anticipating this. So we had already pretty much bought into the fact of what was expected. As you usually hear us probably say, we're pretty much baking in early what was already anticipated, basically, right? Pretty much the market's already pricing in whatever future data is coming out that's anticipated to be bad, or it's pretty much going to end up hurting the market makers. They're already pretty much pricing in. So that data today was already basically priced in, for that matter, pretty much to give you black and white. All right. And that's why we saw the market continue to push. But given the fact that we had NASDAQ literally give us a nice little push here in the 3 days that we got it, and I'll pull up a quick chart on SPY real quick just to give you what I'm looking at in terms of where we stand right now. But I had this larger megaphone action here from when we were at the highs. It looks like we're actually now testing the resistance of this. And if you actually go into a lower time frame, which I would say right around the 30 minutes here, you would see we have a nice little pennant action going on. So if I were to draw this out, and I'll probably just stick it right here. So if you notice, we have a nice little wedge action here, which we would consider to be a bull pennant. And so this is what we're going to be watching here going into tomorrow. Are we going to end up breaking this bull pennant to the upside, in which we pretty much invalidate the resistance and we re-enter what was a prior megaphone action? Or do we end up breaking down and retracing this entire movement that we had from when we had the bottom on the 10th, which was 2 days ago? So what I'm anticipating is that we're going to end up getting, at least best case scenario, we're going to retrace about 50% of this move that we have from the 10th. and then we'll see depending upon what the conditions are, what the acceleration is, maybe if there's any follow-up bad news that we have. We do have some data also coming out tomorrow, as well as the jobless claims. Then we kick off the bank earnings on Friday. So we're not necessarily in the clear just yet. I know that there's probably going to be more headlines coming out following today's data that we had. So just keep that in mind. But right now, we're looking to see if we end up retracing at least, best case, at least 50% of this move that we've gotten from the past 2 days. So that's what I will be particularly watching. That's why you see Gaston says is asking me pretty much why I'm in puts and burn it all. We're expecting at least best case scenario we get some kind of retracement. If not, we end up getting pretty much a flush, in which we hear some bears talking about SPY 464, 450, worst case 436 on SPY. That can end up happening, and it may end up very well happening between this week and next week, right before we have all the tech earnings coming up. So it would make sense for this to just get it over with, flush the market, find whatever bottom it is that we need to find now in terms of this week and next week, and then that leads us right into the tech earnings. So that's just a thought that I have. I would hopefully anticipate that ends up happening, but nothing here is guaranteed. All right. But nonetheless, let's just get into today's alerts. I'm gonna make it fairly quick so we can go through these. Uh, just rather quickly. I don't want to bore you guys, but give you just a quick rundown on the alerts that went off today. Flush at 450. Actually, I saw someone that actually had 436 gas in, believe it or not. Literally, when I saw that chart, I was like, what in the absolute hell is this? But I'll probably share the chat in premium when I see it. It's on my Twitter somewhere. I'll take a look. I'll take a peek for it and I'll screenshot it for you. But real quick, starting off, of course, we'll start off with the beast itself. This was my lotto from last night. I did not say that, of course, but I saw this little bit of an ascending triangle formation here. Yesterday's action. I was anticipating that either we would continue to probably retest here down at the lows of 1051, 1052, and that was pretty much a support level for me. And I was just hoping that that data was basically not going to flush the market, and I was anticipating that the data was already priced in, as we saw it was. So that's why I ended up taking a lotto, keyword lotto, and we got that nice little gap up following that data in the morning, and we had the beautiful little rip. So two things that actually stood out to me was one, of course, the ascending triangle formation from yesterday, and then I did see a lot of flow that was coming in for 1100s. Plus, we ended up picking also a level 3 alert yesterday from TFC. For the level 3 alerts were for 1225 for May. Now, granted the fact that they dropped 2 mil, and this does cover earnings, that's why it was just a lotto. I'm not trusting the fact that, of course, this is a earnings bet more so rather than just a short-term price action, right? But also seeing the flow here, we also had miner picking up level ones, level twos were picking up 1100 calls repeatedly yesterday, and that's also something that ended up backing me up in terms of getting a Tesla Lotto. But beautiful, nonetheless. We had a beautiful retest. If you saw the on my live today that I had it up for you guys on the screen, we had that beautiful pop, a nice little retest action, and then we got that continuation. So we ended up breaking that 1100 mark. We ended up topping off right around resistance around 1114, close enough to 1115, and that was our resistance there. So I will not lie, I did take a small short position at 1114 and some change there. And then I am holding that overnight. So it is another lotto. I'm risking the profits that I got from this morning with Tesla. So I decided to risk those profits. I took a short on Tesla. We'll see how it ends up working out. I know that there's a lot of calls going out for 1150, 1200s. We'll see what ends up happening. Again, it's a lotto. I'm gambling my profits from today and I'm taking that risk, right? But given the fact that I do believe that this is pretty much a hard resistance, and given also the fact that Nasdaq is also in resistance, I think that we're going to end up seeing a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a retracement off of this move. Not to say that we're going to necessarily flush, as Gaston is trying to imply in chat here. All right. But that was a beautiful price action. You saw the amount of premium that was going into this one. Literally right at 9:38 in the morning, we saw 1 million literally pour right into Tesla. And normally when you do see a lot of the $1 million orders, you will see them typically put that in the money. Now, when you do get those kind of $1 million orders out of the money, then it's usually two things which you do have to be careful with. Is one, it's either a hedge, or they have a boatload of money and they're literally pouring it into out of the monies, which are sometimes weeklies. So that's usually what we end up loving is when they pour that kind of money outside, uh, out the money, and then it's usually weeklies because then that usually ends up being a high confidence play because who would dump $1 million on out of the money calls? But this one they did go in the money, so it was a very safe, high confidence play for them. And then also we were pretty much just hitting the 1100s as the Rapids picked it up this morning, right out the bell. All right. Other one was Apple. This was another one we pretty much knew that once the tech started to run, we were gonna see Apple pretty much jump out the gate. I will say though that Microsoft one really surprised me, and actually I do have an alert on Microsoft. But we had those rapids pick up pretty early in the morning here, right before we even spiked out. And then, well, I should move it over here. Right before we even spiked out, we ended up getting that nice little move. And then, what I usually say is that when rapids actually hit and it's actually triggering in the same trend of the market, I've said this numerous of times. You want to look back at it, and what we ended up having has was unusuals towards the end of the day. So that was a nice little scalp opportunity you probably had out of that. We'll see if this one ends up holding up tomorrow morning. Maybe you get a gap up before some kind of trend change here in the market. But that was a beautiful one to follow up to close the market. We'll see if there's any continuation of those 175, 177.50 calls. But the only other precaution is that they went out to the 21st, so they gave themselves an extra week in time here. All right. Other one was ASHR here. This was a China one. I know that Tatum and Darian were actually looking at this one, if I'm not mistaken. They gave themselves quite a bit of time on this, but it ended up paying. If you see, we had a steady decline through the entire day here. That was just a beautiful, unusual. They pretty much hit what I typically like. They went right at the side of the money, basically. They hit 100K in minimum and premium and a 74% TFC score. So I couldn't complain about that. The only thing is, of course, they gave themselves quite a bit of time. So if we didn't see this kind of ascending action today, then you likely may have had to hold or swing and maybe even double down if be the case. But this ended up paying. Nice little scalp opportunity that you had there. Other one was Boeing. You heard Avery pretty much just knocking the door on Boeing pretty much all morning because this was just beautiful. And right when we started talking about Boeing this morning at the opening bell, he literally spoke a rapid call right into existence. And we saw that nice little pop right into the morning before we ended up giving back gains. So that was a beautiful little action that we saw in the morning there. You had an opportunity to get into that scalp. Those 950s, they hit it right around 219. We peaked at 221. So you had a $2 opportunity to get your 10% on that, and that ended up paying very nicely. All right. Of course, they hit out of the money. They hit same week expiration. Of course, I wish the premium was a little bit more, but given the fact they went out of the money in same week, you can't argue with that. All right. And then brings you, of course, to Microsoft. And when I saw this action, I was like, wow, now I see why feuds were up so much in terms of Nasdaq. And we had those nice alerts here that just went off back to back unusuals earlier in the morning. As you see, the premiums were different. That's really what stood out. One of them were 112K, the other one was 116K. At first, they looked like duplicates, but they were separate orders due to the premium and also the fill that they got in the spot. And then we also had at the same time Rapids trigger as well. So nice little move right there. They triggered it at 322. We hit a peak of 322.41. So they might have gotten just a little bit late. So that's the only concern about this one is that they kind of bought the top right here and before the market ended up pulling back. So that was the only concern. And they also went out 325s, which were pretty much a little bit further out of the money. I would hope that they probably ended up selling before this massive pullback because then they're pretty much just eating theta right now. All right. Other one was Amazon. Amazon was a beautiful one. We saw Amazon hit unusuals yesterday. You heard me talking about this one last night, and I actually highlighted it right here. One, they hit it yesterday. They hit those 33.50s yesterday, and they knocked on the door again this morning. Rapid and unusual again this morning. So that's enough said. I don't think I really need to go through that chart. That was just a beautiful one. You knew to watch that one right out the gate, and they made a nice little push here. So that was a beautiful one. You had that one heads up yesterday, and then we'll see if there's any continuation again going into tomorrow before we see any kind of trend change as the market has been rallying. Other one was Melly. This one was a little bit of a head scratcher. I was not expecting this one at all around lunchtime hours, but we had that nice acceleration today, 44 for a $44 move today. So we'll see what this one does in the coming days because obviously this did not pay out today. They hit this one pretty high. So 1160, they did go out of the money on those puts. They went the same week expiration, and we also do have a 60 plus percent TFC score. So everything hit my criteria. This will be a beautiful play tomorrow. If we see a market change trend, this will definitely be one that you want to put on your radar. And you see that nice little kill candle that you had toward the end of the day there. So you definitely want to see a continuation out of that little kill candle going into tomorrow and into Friday. So keep this one on watch. I know that the only thing is that the premium is a little bit high, so it is about $10, risking probably about a grand or so. Maybe you can get something a little bit further out of money. I'm pretty sure also though that liquidity is a little bit low on this, so just be a little cautious on that part as well. All right. But what's the continuation on that? Other one was ARC. I'm not surprised on this one. We saw a lot of the ARC names pretty much get revived today as Nasdaq was just pushing. This looks like it was just more so of an intraday scalp. They hit this one at 104. I didn't look exactly what time or what the price action was. Let me see real quick where they hit it. And no lie, this actually looks like it might have been a hedge. So a little bit risky here. They literally went right at the money. Same week, 105K. I mean, it hits my criteria per se, but the fact that they ended up literally buying the top here today, intraday, yeah, that was no bueno. I didn't like that. So I didn't even look at this one. I'm not really a big fan of really trading ARC so much like that. As far as I would prefer pretty much trading the individual names, but I stayed away from this one. Hopefully you guys didn't get caught in this one. It likely hit your stop loss, or maybe I don't even think you had an opportunity to really double down here either, because it was just a slow bleed. But hopefully you guys avoided that one, or you hit your stop loss and you pretty much were disciplined enough to obey that stop loss for that matter. All right. Other one was AMC, and actually news alert on this one if you guys were not aware. AMC, when I saw the Nimbus come out, I was definitely not gonna want to touch this. I'm not a meme stock person like that. Uh, but I did see that the CEO actually sold quite a bit of shares. At one point, I saw it was 900,000. Another tweet I saw said about 300 something thousand shares that the CEO sold. So keep it on watch. This may have been something that maybe someone inside knew, and that's why we had two Nimbuses come out. Also, other thing is to keep in mind is that the premium is different, so it's not a duplicate. One of them are 221K, the other one's 152K in premium. They did go pretty much right in the money, and then they also gave themselves quite a bit of time, about 2 months in time here. So just something to be aware of. But if the opportunity we see any reaction out of the CEO selling shares today, that may be a nice little day trade opportunity tomorrow to the downside, in which you can take a nice little scalp out of that. Real quick, running through the last two that I just pretty much added. Someone actually requested to see the 100% TFC scores that come through our miner flow. And this is one of them. This is CNQ. This is an energy stock. It's pretty much hitting all-time highs. I do like to trade here. You had an opportunity to get a nice little scalp day trade opportunity out of this one, as they pretty much tried to snipe through the bottom here. But this was a beautiful one. They went right at the money, right one strike out of the money. They gave themselves quite a bit of time, which is pretty much very much uh, what I would say is safe in terms of energy, because we know that energy is more of a slower mover in the sector as a whole. The other thing was the amount of premium that they hit on this 183K, beautiful amount of premium. So we'll look to see the continuation on this one in the coming days here. You're literally making new high after new high right now. We know how hot the energy sector is. So continue to grind on this one. Let's see where it ends up taking us. But you basically want to treat it like I would normally say is your 10 to 15% as you usually treat the rapids. So something to keep in mind there. Other one was Regeneron. This one I was not expecting at all. The only other thing when I was actually screenshotting the alert here was that I noticed they covered earnings. So I wanted to get and let you guys aware of that. But they did get on the Regeneron pretty early in the morning. So you had a nice little $3 scalp opportunity on this one. They gave themselves quite a bit of time here again, about a month in time. They did go out of the money, and it was 100%. But the only concern, of course, is that they went for earnings. So that expiration does cover the earnings. I did also see another biotech stock that they hit. That one did not cover earnings. It was Jazz Pharmaceutical. If you guys remember, I covered that I think yesterday night, and that was another one. So back-to-back biotech here. They're going out of the money, giving themselves quite a bit of time. So maybe something to keep an eye on in terms of Regeneron and Jazz. Maybe that's the biotech sector in general. We want to see how they may end up reacting, maybe in terms of a trend change for tech. Maybe it goes into the biotech sector. All right. So that's something to maybe just keep on watch as a whole. But other than that, that covers the alerts today, guys. Hopefully you guys pretty much secured your profits today. That's probably be the biggest thing I would say. Is usually when you see these big stretches, we had a 5 day bleed out going from last week. Then we had a nice little 3 day rally so far. But what we want to see if there's going to be, we're expecting a red day at some point, right? So we got 2 more trading days this week. So I would expect a red day either tomorrow or Friday in terms of a macro perspective here. So after a 5 day blood skid, we ended up getting a 3 day rally. Let's see if we give any of those profits back from these 3 days to close out the week. And that's what we'll be watching for. All right. But other than that, we'll close out with that. I'll see you guys on live tomorrow morning. And you guys have a great night. All right. Later, guys.